Hello and welcome to Take Me Through Your Day. On this episode, we have a audio video tech. He's got a lot of interesting background. I'm not going to give away too much, but it's a very interesting show. I think you're going to really like it. But in any case, if you want to be on the show, get us at TakeMeTYD@gmail.com or TakeMeTYD.com. Enjoy the show. All right, so what do you do for a living?
I'm an audio visual technician, technical supervisor, and set up audio, video, lighting equipment for conferences, for events, for fundraisers, for all sorts of different things.
What would you say? Because I don't want to use the name of the place, but what would you say the scale of the venue?
Scale, 1,000 people, something like that. Sometimes more, sometimes less. A lot of different hotels, a lot of different, convention centers, or I used to work in nightclubs. Most of them aren't around anymore. This was in San Diego.
Yeah, that's how we started talking. We started talking about those early 2000s, late 90s.
So my fall in for this is that I used to mix visuals for nightclubs, and I started tinkering around with how you can make computers respond to music. Loved music my whole life and never had like a real way into it. Like I wasn't talented at any particular instrument. So I kind of created this little niche for myself where I made videos respond to music via a computer, Yeah. My special sort of nerd power in a way. And it kind of took off a little bit, and I got hired to do bigger and bigger events in California. Now, my afterlife in that, now that I'm a little bit older, is doing this event production stuff in like more corporate environment. But
well, we're gonna get into all of it.
Yeah.
Right? So, because were you in California, all over California, or was this
mostly San Diego? But they hired me to work in San Francisco and Coachella, people are probably familiar with.
So you've actually worked at, okay. We'll get there. Let's go back.
LA. I used to joke with them like, hey, like you can't find a local VJ in San Francisco. I imagine you guys got to find some good people around here but some things are like, the exoticness of it, bringing a guy from somewhere else or bringing a girl from wherever. And
it seemed like, we got this guy all the way from,
Yeah. It's one thing that you don't think about when you're a young person trying to get into like maybe bringing a fresh new energy and a fresh new mindset and,
Yeah, you never know. So okay, let's go back to high school. In high school, do you have any idea what you wanted to do?
Oh, I liked writing. I started to get passionate about writing and just creativity in general. Like I was very good at math and very good at a bunch of things, but I was always inspired by writing. Mm-hmm. Although I started to worry about writing in general being kind of like, who's reading books these days? And like, if you're thinking about it, people make movies, people do things, they write things, but it has a sort of wider appeal, like, you could be a poet or whatever, but in a lot of ways that's like not modern. It's
were you thinking this is like a financial perspective or just like
if the novel doesn't work out, you could always fall back on teaching and be a English professor. I really loved Dead Poet Society at the time.
Okay,
and, I thought that Robin Williams was like amazing and I loved the movie and but anyway, creativity for me comes in like it's wherever I want to go with things.
But you knew that you wanted to be in a creative field.
Basically, yeah. And was always just kind of expressing myself in various ways. And my best friend growing up was extremely talented and creative and a painter. And I was nowhere near the abilities that he had, to draw or to paint or whatever. And I was a little envious of that, but writing for me was something that I could do that was like a structured art. I was actually at the time trying to be an architect. I thought like building a house for someone was like, you're being very creative, right? You're designing a house and then someone actually lives in that thing. So it is a very palpable form of creativity.
Absolutely.
However, at the same time, my dad was a painting contractor, and all these houses were being built in these planned communities where like all of them look the same. And I'm like, you're probably not going to be Frank Lloyd Wright. You're probably going to be
the guy
these cookie cutter houses and all the like nuts and bolts for like a really basic planned community where everything's a little repetitive, a little generic.
Well, is this just the thought, or did you actually pursue it a little bit?
I pursued architecture heavily. Where I went to school had a very serious architecture program that you could take 3 periods a day.
Now, this is high school or college?
High school.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was part of Pennsylvania. Like they funded our school to have all this like architectural resources there. So I was working on CAD computers well before most people had access to that. And like,
that's a great skill to have.
Yeah, it was cool to like, again, with my best buddy, Curdy, if I can say a little name in there. Architecture was a way for me to be creative and have a structure to it, so I didn't have to, like, I could use CAD.
Yeah, because you're still under the parameters.
And I, like I said, if you design a house for somebody, that's a very real form of creativity that actually has a very real use. But
a real practical application.
Yeah, and obviously did a big pivot because I was thinking about how architecture, one architect that I knew at the time said it's the highest workload at a university with the lowest pay return for what they pay architects. Okay.
So was that the pivot? Was that the moment you were like,
A combination of like, I didn't get into Carnegie Mellon. I got waitlisted there, and had I gone to Carnegie Mellon, maybe I would have pursued that. But again, like there was some shifting of, and like you're a creative individual, and as we all are, there's many things we can be good at. There's some things that maybe are more fulfilling than others, more like, I like it that young folks, can do a lot of different things. You wear many hats, and like I'm good at a lot of different things. Just get good at a lot of different things. And
I think that's the beauty of the internet, is that you can actually explore these kind of avenues.
Our grandparents' generation and prior, they'd be a cobbler or they'd be a whatever.
Yeah,
and that was
like 10
I'm gonna do this
choose
40
all
years and never pivot, never. Nowadays, young folks have this opportunity to like make dramatic changes, and
there is something nice to be said about it, because there's still some of them around. Some of these old tailors around town. Just like, this is an old Italian man, and he's taking this to the grave.
Right.
Like, retirement is not an option here. He's like, I'm doing this till I'm done.
Totally.
And I like that. But still, that being said, it's great to have options. And I mean, that's kind of what the whole show's about.
Yeah.
So, okay, you're in college, you make the pivot. What do you do with the pivot?
So, well, I was at Penn State, and I wasn't particularly happy there at the time. Like, Penn State, from where I grew up, was not particularly diverse, not particularly like...
So you're speaking specifically about like the town, like the kind of elements you're around?
Hell yeah, and also just being a young kind of troubled dude that doesn't know where I fit in, and I was doing well. There was a lot of like Greek life that I wasn't particularly keen on, and like a lot of like people blowing off college, like, or like not showing up. And it's like, for me, like, this is expensive, and like you're not even showing up to class and mailing it in kind of thing. And there's a lot of that there, which I'm sure there's a lot of it every school. And I told myself, like, be okay with that. Like, I look forward to the weekends where I get to hang out with my friends, and then come Monday I was geared up to do a week of work and go to like, and it seemed odd to me that like some people were there, and I'm like, how the hell did you get into Penn State University? And it seems like you have no business being here. But
I mean, I can see that. I imagine that in a college thing. Like I went to college very briefly. I joke around, but I'm dead serious when I say I dropped out in 8 minutes.
Really?
8 minutes flat.
Really?
Done. Out.
I dropped out. I left Penn State in a year and a half of being there. Before that, I went to this little community college called Rose State in Oklahoma, because I didn't get into any of the highfalutin schools I applied to, because because I wanted to have my ass handed to me by a school, which I think anyone listening to this should want to have your ass handed to you by a college and want to be a C student. But I was a B student at Penn State, and also really, questioning like how quickly a college can respond to things, like who are these people teaching me and how much they know about the things they're teaching me. And it's when like the internet's coming around, and like this is in 96, 97. Lots of things are changing rapidly.
Very rapidly. Yeah.
So I basically just left and went to California on a crazy journey with my buddy who lived in Utah at the time because he was raised Mormon.
So wait a minute. So the pivot is, I'm just done with college.
Done with, I just done, and actually not completely done because I applied to transfer into UC Berkeley, which was my dream school.
Yeah.
We had this professor at Penn State that was just this ad nauseum old tenured guy that would put everyone to sleep, and like I was the last person with my head standing up before hitting the table. And it was poetry class, which generally could be exciting and could be
if done right, that could be very exciting.
It could be. And he's just hanging on that tenure and whatever. And he said that the greatest living poet was Czeslaw Milosz. And this poem by Czeslaw Milosz really resonated with me. And he was poet in residence at UC Berkeley.
Wait, was this the one you had me look up?
Gift, maybe?
Maybe. You had me look one up the first time we really hung out.
Put it on the record.
Yeah, we'll throw it in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's a great poem, but some of the lines from it really resonated with me. Like, I knew no man worth my envying him, which has stuck with me to this day. Like, literally, there's no one worth envying in life. Like, they've all done their thing, got where they are, if they were born into it, if they whatever. I just love that, being at Penn State, being surrounded by people that had a lot more, came from a lot more than me. It really resonated that, they had all this sort of affluence and were throwing it away at Penn State. And I was there working my butt off and struggling to eating ramen noodles and all this stuff. And
you just really making it
out-competing them in class and,
Well, that's what I was about to say. Like you've established that you're a good student, so you leave for California.
Yeah.
You try to transfer to Berkeley. What happened?
So my son was born 2 weeks before I was supposed to start at UC Berkeley. Actually, it's funny because I definitely do not want him to think that he was ever a barrier to being there. I just chose to try and be a dad.
Yeah, you decided to man up. That's good. There's no shame in that.
Absolutely. I just would never want him to think that it was like a dream deferred or something like that, because he was worth every moment of it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
absolutely. Like, life is what you make of it. And Berkeley may have taught me some good things, but I learned more from my son than, I'd ever probably enjoy there. And the funny thing is, this is how naive I was at the time. I thought poet in residence meant that you could take classes from him. And when I was approaching signing up and ready to enroll and everything, I'm looking for him on the roster. And it turns out when you're a poet in residence, you're not teaching classes and stuff like that. They're just paying you a sort of living expense to be there and be on their university staff. And
so what do they do?
Yeah, good question.
All right, so how does the rest of this unfold? You've got a kid now. What do you do?
Yeah, so at the whole time I was experimenting, like I told you earlier, about how you can make computers sort of create content on screens, and I was really, it was kind of like in the dying days of MTV playing music videos, but there was still all this great content out there, and so I moved back to Pittsburgh for a little bit and was working at a restaurant and ended up doing a projection stuff for the restaurant and playing music videos, but then went back to California and it was strictly visual accompaniment to big shows, and that no one was really doing it near the level that I was taking it to. And
well, just so we have a template for
Yeah.
this, how were you
Yeah, the
getting
template's weird.
into these? Like, that's what I mean. Like, did you happen upon it, or did you just happen to be at a restaurant and they happen to do this, and then that happened to get you back to California?
So, funny stuff, like in California, I like was working a normal sort of boring job, but then also tinkering with like projecting things and like, making, if you remember visualizers, that
Yes.
a company like you that Winamp or something, and
Winamp.
that's really cool. And then you'd be at a party, and instead of just playing music, you'd have that little thing going, and so it's sort of background. But in reality, in a club, I went like large with it, where it's like a giant part of the event. And
Now, is this your own thing, or is this literally
My own
blowing up
company,
Winamp?
no,
Okay, so this is your own.
Winamp's sort of like the inspiration a little bit, or one of the things is like,
Well,
what
it's
if you
a
do
good-
that on
it's
a
a good-
greater scale?
Yeah, it's a good place
So
to start.
I would use a mix of live cams and content that I either created myself or found on the internet in the early days of just, basically whatever I thought looked cool and looked good on the big screens, I would project and mix to live DJ shows. And it was, sort of underground-ish, so I didn't have to worry about like copyrights or whatever.
It was the Wild West of the internet.
I would literally go to the library and grab these IMAX DVDs that you never really sit down with yourself and watch, but on a projected in a nightclub, they look amazing. Like all this National Geographic videography that they do, or it looks phenomenal in my opinion. Like,
Oh, yeah.
in the right environment, like sit down at night and watch this. You're not really going to do that, but if you're out partying and all of a sudden like these amazing visuals of Earth and like, there's a lot of fun content out there that, maybe in the normal course of your life, you're not going to like push play on, but in a
club setting, it's a completely different story. So where does this go with the whole like computer interacting with the music visuals versus you just saying like, this would look awesome if I played this?
It's funny, like that it was literally, there was no rules. I got to do what I did, like just me thinking about, let's make this look great, and responding to the music that was, I didn't know the DJs very well. Some of them are very much famous household names, and in that, if you're into that world.
I mean, if you feel free to name drop anytime you want.
Yeah. So the biggest name, I remember the first big name that I worked with, the Crystal Method. It was a weird name to have because most people like the controversial, like
It's a thing, but I'm a big fan.
yeah.
That first album hit me right when.
Oh,
yeah.
totally. Vegas was like, it changed my life about what music was, and then to actually get to work with them and then become friends with them. Ken lives down in Costa Rica now, and he's living on this, like, living his best life. Hopefully, maybe I'll send this to him and he can check it out. But
Yeah, that'd be great.
but so getting a chance to like mix visuals for them and other DJs, Paul Van Dyke. I wasn't too keen on Tiesto, but I did get to work with him once. Armin van Buuren was awesome. Donald Glaude one time. He's a good friend of mine, but like he was working with a different sort of production company in San Diego.
Yeah.
But literally, they used to pay me to mix visuals for club nights, and it was bizarre. I would always just sort of pinch myself. One time I was like holding a video camera on a girl dancing while mixing with my other hand, and my one buddy was up in the booth, like the VIP area with me, and he's like, did they pay you to do this? And it's like, sometimes, you gotta look back at things and be like, yeah, that's a pretty bizarre thing to get paid to do, but I was good at it. And now I live a more boring version because I sort of turned it over to the younger generations a little bit. And
Well, I mean, it's at certain points you have to do that.
yeah, like I think if we made a point to like let some of the younger folks step in and take the reins, and old guys or girls step out of the way and let them do the things that they can do,
Well,
Which is the best.
just to go back a little bit to be
Yeah.
clear on kind of the trajectory again. So you were just doing like basic underground shows, and there's just
Well, they were
these bigger names start to catch wind of the
I wouldn't
kind of stuff you're doing.
So they were actual clubs, like professional businesses. Like,
Yeah.
So when I say underground, I meant like the whole music scene of.
Well,
electronic
that's what I
music was
assumed. I
underground at the
wasn't
time.
assuming you were at someone's house.
Yeah, these are like, I mean, yeah, just set up projectors and mix visuals, and whoever's showing up that like it was good. Now,
So it's just like a word of mouth, like, hey, you know that guy from that party? He's doing this. You want to go check it out? Kind of.
I mean, these are venues that obviously promote and like run advertisements and stuff. And
All right, cool. So, where do we go from here? Do you have stories of that era, or do you want to get right into what you do now?
I'll tell you, like, so funny transition. When you're doing that for a living, I had this really like I wanted to stop, like, because I was partying way too much, and it's like I started to lose the love of it that I had in the beginning, and it does start to feel like work. Whatever you do, at times will feel like work, and that's what separates like the men from the boys a little bit,
Yep.
And it's like, God, I spent all this time learning this really niche thing, and I don't feel like, perfectly honest, I partied my ass off. I would like show up, hungover from the night before, and by night before I mean morning before, like, because we would set up. Our events would go to like 3 a.m, 4 a.m. sometimes.
It comes with the territory.
And I gotta put gear away and make sure it's somewhat safe. Just literally throwing it into the crates as fast as I could to get out of there to get to the after party, and then try and wake up and do it again the next day. And in my 20s, that was maybe something I could do.
Yeah, it's something you can pull off pretty easy.
44. To put that on tape.
I think people did the math with the Berkeley and the
Yeah. Good, smart people.
and the crystal method.
Yeah, it's crystal method, the performers, not the drug.
Yeah, no. I think people know.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that album, go get that album. That is
Game changer.
perfect front to back. Perfect.
There's a lot of electronic music that does not hold up over time. That is one that
I've noticed that as well.
definitely held up over time, and you can put it on right now and it'd still be a club rocker. I used to text Ken, like, dude, someone just played your song on a jukebox, and like, always like appreciate that. I don't know how much he appreciated it. He probably got a lot of the texts like that, so it's annoying.
It happens, but I mean, like, I still have all my records from back in the day, and like, I'll just throw one on, and a lot of them really hold up. They're timeless. I mean, if you're into that genre, But
so the pivot that I found after that was working for an audio-visual company that does events, conferences, and stuff like that, where it's a more sort of what you might consider a boring corporate environment. But for me, that was exactly what I
you just want to
wanted, like
something more stable, something more steady.
Yeah, and so I'll set up, like, instead of working in a nightclub environment, I'm doing it in a conference room, or
It's still important work. Someone's got to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. And the cool thing about that is that I get to sit in on all these like meetings from people that some conferences that travel from around the world to attend, and you get to hear like the latest, greatest on something. The most recent one I worked was for home brewers that brew their own beer, and they have their own conference.
Oh, that's huge.
So I'm like,
yeah.
These people are traveling from around the country to see this, attend this conference, and I'm getting to sit in the back of the room with very little responsibility and listen to how to homebrew your own beer, which to me seems like I'm not ready to go there yet, but if like the shit hit the fan in life, it'd be good to know how to.
It'd be a good skill to have.
It'd be a good skill. I want to be friends with those folks. I don't want to bother with. For now, I'll just pay for the beers that I buy.
Yeah, but this is the adult version of that. It's like back then there's the perks with the after party and the bands and all. Now it's like, hey, I'm gonna go learn some stuff, and I'm gonna get paid to do.
Yeah, think about the job with perks if you're thinking about a job.
Yeah, think about what you get with it.
Yeah, and so even the boring conferences, like, I literally get to do what I want in the back of the room. In the early days, I would like bring a book and read, just do other things while the conference is going on. And you learn to hear problems before they happen, like feedback and things like that.
Yeah.
But and I try to make my events bulletproof, where like, you don't have to worry about the mics feeding back or the projectors going out, or
Yeah, you've mastered the craft at this point.
yeah, I mean, lots of things do go wrong. If you haven't had something go wrong on you, you haven't been doing it long enough. And I like to look at all the reels of broadcast TV where it goes wrong, because it reminds me that those people have a perfectly stable environment,
And it's
they still have accidents. One of my favorites was like the Russian Olympics had a big snafu in the middle of their production, and I like to think about like if that can happen there.
Yeah, exactly. Would have matched
Any live event, there's a potential for something to go wrong. It's all about how you deal with it.
How you can handle it on your toes. And so wait, let's go to the transition real quick. So you're doing the bands and the late night shows and all this stuff. What's the kicker that's like, hey, I need to get something more steady and responsible? What goes on in your head to get you there?
Well, partying too much and like just feeling my life come like unhinged a little bit. It was like stuff that I maybe don't want to put on.
No. I think a lot of people can relate to just what you just said.
Yeah.
So what was the move to get to the other thing? To get to the responsible, I'm going to do conferences.
Yeah.
How do you be like, okay, today's the day, I'm going to go find...
So the company that I presently work for, years and years ago, I worked for, in addition to doing the visual mixing for clubs. And the people that I started working with for this company were kind of like hostile towards me in the beginning. They're really standoffish, like, who are you, and whatever. And then I told them, like, oh, I also VJ for this club, and it's a really popular club. And then all of a sudden their like whole mode of talking to me switched, because they viewed me as someone that was doing something. And I was kind of like, well, I mean, I could have gone without that like very cold intro, like,
yeah.
now that I can do certain things, and now you're all of a sudden like my buddy.
It's that whole interview process where you gotta prove your worth.
Yeah, everyone goes through it in work. I like, it'll be a little cold in the beginning, and you gotta sort of prove your worth. Or
well, also, yeah, that's another thing that is, I think, important for people to know. It's like those people on the other end, they're going through, maybe 10, 20, 30, maybe 100 people in a day, just trying to find like, oh my God, this guy, can I just find someone who can handle it?
Yeah.
So it's frustrating on their end too, but also it is kind of shitty if you're the one hiring people to just be cold.
Yeah, there is a lot of like, potential for burnout in what we do, as much as it can be cool. We're like first in, last out mentality, like where if you're doing a long day of a conference, we're the first ones there an hour before everyone, last one's out. So that could mean in a long conference day, you're like 12 hours, 15 hours potentially, something like that, and then wind it up and do it again the next day.
Exactly. That can make a lot of people burn out. But I think if you're prepared for that kind of thing, you're good. That being said, I think it's about time to start the show.
Yeah.
So when do you usually get up and work? We're talking about a normal work day. What time do you...
One of the fun, not so fun things about my job is that there is no usual. I could be working an event that goes till midnight, and so I tend to like try to sleep in a little bit to make myself fresh later in the day. Yeah. And I mean, I'm kind of a high motor individual to begin with, so like not too much of a thing. For anyone that works in like I'm sort of service industry adjacent in a lot of ways. It's definitely service industry.
Well, I specifically ask about like when you wake up, and because I want to get into like, how do you go to sleep?
I might be working with some doctor conference where they are starting at 7 a.m., which means I need to be there at like 6 and 6 a.m. and then it goes till whatever. So I might be waking up at 5 a.m., 4:30 on worst case scenarios.
Okay, let's go with that one, because I want to stick to one so we're not bouncing all over this place. And that sounds like a nightmare to me. I don't want to wake up and get there at 5 in the morning.
Right.
So let's just say that's the gig. You're going to one of these conferences. You got to wake up 4:35 in the morning.
Yeah.
What's the routine? What's the morning like?
Well, I mean, I gotta doubt a little bit, you know, like I just try to get myself in bed at a reasonable hour if I can. And then lately I've been trying to, I used to do everything last minute, like just rush and get out of the house as quickly as I can. Lately I've been trying to, whatever it is, stall that, give myself a good window of being there on time. In my now role, it's more critical. When I worked in like nightclubs and stuff like that, I'd be like, I'll get there when I get there, and whatever. But
so let's say it starts at 6. You got to get there at 5. What time are you waking up?
this is not a common thing, so I don't want to like discourage.
Okay, well, okay. Let's scrap the whole thing. Let's go with the most normal.
Yeah.
What's the most
normal conferences are like, you know, 8 a.m., 9 a.m. start, something like that.
Okay, let's shoot for that.
Be,
you got an 8 a.m., 9 a.m. start.
Yeah.
When do you set an alarm? What do you do?
Absolutely. I set multiple alarms because I'm a heavy sleeper. And,
okay, so you're smashing that snooze button.
Yeah, I can sleep through a lot of things. I've been getting better about that in my life, and also I have a girlfriend who's a very light sleeper. So she's sort of my make sure I get to work on time person, and because she's a light sleeper, we have different bedrooms and things like that. Like I think in the modern era, maybe we don't need to be sleeping next to each other and still be a good couple. It kind of really helps our relationship.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are getting hit to that. Yeah, because I'm a very light sleeper myself.
You are?
And it's like, hey, you want to knock that alarm off for the 18th time?
Yeah.
But go on.
So yeah, downside to the job is there is literally no set schedule. It's constantly moving. Some nights I'm doing a fundraiser that goes till midnight or past that occasionally. Some nights I'm doing these conferences that are starting at 8 a.m. Occasionally, doctors or something will want to start at 7 a.m. And yeah, for me, I'm kind of like flexible like that. I don't really care as much. I've gotten used to it over time. And
well, I think that's a really important thing to know for someone who wants to get into this. Because like someone like me, like I need my routines. Because if I start getting erratic, like I'm a bad sleeper.
If that's you in life, do not try this. Because you know, there's 9-to-5 jobs are nice if that's your thing, and like you go to bed at a certain time and you like the schedule. I would say there's certain people in the line of work that can do that. You know, if you're good enough and they, you know, want you to be 9-to-5 or 8-to-4 or whatever. If you're an audio technician, my company is a boneyard for a lot of people whose bands, you know, are kind of like never making it to the national platform, and hobby sort of people. So there's a lot of musicians, a lot of people that were in high school or their church doing the audio, video, and lighting stuff. We end up being a good sort of analog for that in a lot of ways. And, you know, at the end of the day, like I set up these events and I get to hear these great things, and then I put it all away at the end of the day. And another thing that you may not want to do if you feel like building something that lasts, I've kind of considered doing like installation work where you make a home theater for a very wealthy person, and that's permanent and it stays there. I put everything in and I take everything out. Like just
so this is just like a side hustle for you?
What?
This is like a side hustle for you? Or?
No. I'm just saying, if you're more the kind of person that wants to build stuff that is permanent, you know, you might consider the installation side of things. Like there's pretty good work in that field, you know. What we do is we build AV systems and then we take them all out, like it's temporary.
Yeah, because it's just for a conference.
It's just for a conference, or it's just for a meeting, or it's just for
well, that's good. Let's get into that. So let's hit the beats of the day a little bit. So you wake up at what were we saying? We're 8 a.m. at this point for your average. Let's just say 8.
Yeah.
You hit a bunch of alarms.
Yeah.
And you get up. what's the routine? What do you do in your morning? What's your morning like?
Such an absence of well, I'm trying to put more routines in my life.
Well, give me the erratic version. Just tell me what your instinct is.
There is like just whatever event is happening at a brand of hotel, I go in, I make it happen. Now we've been doing these hybridized events where people are checking in remotely as well as live in person. So you have to like set up some of these new technology things for that meeting room owls, which
those ones that move.
Yeah, they like focus on whoever's speaking. It's like a 360 camera. So it'll like lock into whoever's presenting, and then people can watch remotely. I think so. Any young folks listening to this, they're going to be dealing with old people that are techno challenged, and they're going to be techno assertive or savvy, and kind of maybe more comfortable with the equipment than, especially since all these kids have been like taking classes remotely.
Oh yeah,
and like
these kids all grew up with it. They're all getting the.
I'm starting to worry about myself getting a little dated in this game, and but I've done some hybrid meetings where I'm like, yeah, no, this isn't so bad. I already know some of the tricks of the trade and like how to make it, how to do a mix minus, which is like you don't want the people in the room and the microphones sending. I won't bore people with the details.
I'm just saying, like people want to hear about it, but we can always do a follow up if people really are really into the dirty details.
Right.
But let's get back to the day. You're in your morning. You don't have many routines. It's kind of erratic. But also, I want you to just visualize a specific event.
Right.
So we're not just jumping all over.
Yeah.
So this is, you're getting up at 8 a.m. for like a 9.
I'll use the homebrewers as a generic sort of, because that's a fun one. So what I do is I go in, I set up all these meeting rooms with microphones, speakers, projectors, projection screens. If there's a virtual component, we might have some sort of webcam scenario, laptops and PowerPoints, right? So people will be delivering information to an audience, and those folks are generally pretty good at their jobs, entertaining, much like a good teacher will not only educate you, but entertain you. I love edutainment as a thing, as a concept.
I think that's kind of what this falls into.
Yeah. I hope so.
Attempt to be entertaining.
Yeah. And like, that's just, there's so much dumb content out there right now that if you force yourself to listen to stuff that's entertaining, but also educational, and stay away from the Honey Boo Boos of the world and
the real dumb stuff.
The dumb stuff. And it is tempting. And I find myself watching more ridiculousness than I care to admit. But,
these things happen.
Sometimes you let yourself throttle down a little bit in life, and give yourself those windows of just being like, I'm not constantly needing to absorb information and just.
But it is a fun avenue to go down when you can be entertained by something dumb and still learn something at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So so you set all this stuff up. Are you actively like sound engineering these things as the events go?
Yeah.
What happens when you have multiple rooms going, or do they not go at the same time?
So, depending on the size of the room we would have an active sound and video person or multiple people.
So if there's an event going on, there will always be somebody handling that in case something
Literally, we will set the room in such a way that it's sort of bulletproof, like I was saying earlier, where scale-wise, for a conference, I would recommend them having a technician per room in the room that's there and covering whatever happens, and both audio and video wise. That's the ideal. But a lot of times it'll just be me launching and babysitting a bunch of rooms. Like these smaller events where it's 20, 30 people, you don't really need an in-room technician. Just set it and forget it, and
Well, that's good.
Change the batteries on the microphones in between breaks and whatnot. But
that I think everyone that wants to get into this kind of has a good representation of it now.
Yeah.
So lifestyle wise, what are we talking like hours per week that you're putting in? Or is this a choice, or is this a mandatory thing? Or because you said you work for a company.
Yeah. So there is, right now there's a pretty good amount of opportunity, I feel like, in this line of work, because a lot of people with the pandemic shutting things down were pretty capable people, and they found other work elsewhere. And so I created, like, we were literally, my job went to crickets for 2 years, basically, because I'm a live event production person.
Well, that actually, like, I didn't think of that, because, like, this is my first getting back into new interviews post-COVID.
Right. So
I probably need to set up some protocol for, like, what did you do for 2 years?
it was interesting. I have some friends that own apartment buildings, and I was helping them rehab them a little bit. And I tend to have, like, so I was just doing sort of handyman kind of stuff. Like, I love fixing things in my life. And so, like, for me, it's all just like, what am I fixing today? Like,
well, it goes back to that, like what you were saying about being just a creative person. You can kind of dial that into all kinds of other avenues if you want to. Like this room we're sitting in right now.
Yeah.
When I bought this house, there were no walls here.
Yeah.
All these walls are me.
Yeah.
I didn't do a great job, but you can't really tell.
Really?
Yeah, all that's new. All that drop ceiling's brand new. But yeah, it's like I still work during the pandemic.
These days,
like, this kept me.
You can watch YouTube videos and figure it out as you go. And like, fortunately, my dad was a super handy guy in general. He's like, reminds me of MacGyver, but maybe most people listening to this won't know who that is. But
well,
look it up.
Google MacGyver.
Google MacGyver.
Watch an episode. It was a good show.
Yeah. MacGruber, they're probably more familiar with, but
yeah, I mean that's good too.
Yeah.
But MacGyver, you gotta go throwback an old school MacGyver. This is a little bit of a tangent, but like, isn't it crazy how like young people don't have like reruns? How we grew up, there was reruns of everything.
Yeah.
So like there was like the primetime shows that were good, but like if you watch anything else, it's all old stuff, and nobody has references for anything. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. Well, I'm not one of these people that is like, kids these days, because kids these days are facing their own challenges in unique ways, and they're going to blow us out of the water in a lot of ways, but they're also going to have the same amount of shitty people that I think it's kind of like just standard. Like,
it's standard getting older, but it just happened at a weird rate this time.
Yeah.
Because like I'll be talking to someone that's not even that much younger than me. I'll be like, "You remember that episode of Alf, right?" And they're like, "What?
Yeah.
What is Alf?"
Well, back in the day, they're like, I used to have to walk to school uphill both
well,
ways.
exactly.
Like,
it's just like, this is our new version of it.
Yeah. This is our new version of that. Just enjoy the old folks talking about how they're,
Regardless,
I do just watch the new Stranger Things episode.
I'm still a whole
Peak
season
80s,
behind.
Peak 80s. There's some people thinking that 80s was like the pinnacle of everything.
Well, that's all because that's who's in charge right now. That's in charge of the Hollywood studios. They're all nostalgic for the 80s, and they're blown. They're doing a great job. They're doing a great job. I'm sure in 10 years, we're gonna hate whatever's being churned out.
Yeah.
Nostalgia for the 90s.
As I was VJing again, I did a little bit of a VJ thing in Burning Man, and
when was this?
2019. The last.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. So I hadn't VJ'd at a club or anything for 10 years or whatever.
And you
kind of
went
just
straight to Burning Man.
Straight to Burning Man. Straight to like Why Not, and mixed visuals at Burning Man, and some people freaking loved it, and some of the visual people that were also there were like not getting it, and I was like, interesting. And I was really just trying to be a ambassador of the art form that I used to be a big part of. I used to like, kind of, I don't know, help pioneer, let's say. And it's funny because like what people are doing visually these days, I'd be like, yeah, that's whatever. But
It comes in cycles. I mean, someone will get really good at something and it'll come around.
Art, in my opinion, is like layers of meaning. How many layers of meaning are in the art, and how challenging is it, and how much you can like, I don't know, like derive from it. Like,
yeah, I think derive from it is a great way to put it, because I think like we were talking about, like you said, the first time we were hanging out, you were talking about poetry and stuff like that. I had mentioned that that poem Howl. You're familiar with Howl, right?
Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Yeah. So I read it in high school.
Yeah.
I was like, meh, whatever. And I saw that James Franco movie, and I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And then years later, I heard Greg Proops, Greg Proops, the comedian,
right?
From Whose Line Is It Anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
I heard him just do a live reading of it, and it gave me fucking goosebumps.
Okay.
All the words are the same.
Yeah.
They're all the same. But for some reason, if you get it in the right delivery system, it can hit you.
Yeah. I remember at my high school graduation, one of the teachers started to read a poem, and the audience booed her because she's like, I'm going to read a poem. And it was when I was first starting to find an affinity for poetry, and like how these, like these really extremely crafted words, like meticulously crafted words, could be an amazing thing. And I don't know if it was more like just growing up at the high school that I grew up in, or that maybe they gave their kids a C or a D in English class, and so they were booing that particular teacher.
You never know.
Never know. But yeah, she got booed for reading a poem, and I thought, like, as I was starting to be like, poetry is cool, and I don't care what you think about me liking poetry. Like, I'm just gonna enjoy it because I enjoy it.
And I think that's a great takeaway from it. It's how you take it in.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and like there's polished words, like condensed, polished, beautiful words. And we live in a world where like there's this fast media and people just putting out things that maybe they agree, like maybe later in life they'll look back and be like, wow, that was stupid of me to write. Stupid of me to think.
We could sit here and analyze that for hours.
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, we're cooking up. Like, I think we've done about an hour already. We got 50 minutes already. So, let's wrap the day up. Let's wrap up this average day, because I think we got the bulk of what's going on here.
Set up a lot of stuff. You take down a lot of cables. There's the nuts and bolts of it. Like, you got basically, sometimes it's not all cool stuff. You're putting flip charts into rooms for people when you're dealing with meeting planners are particularly challenging to me, because think about that person as a person. Like, their job is literally to try and like oversee things that people are already doing. There's some good ones. I don't want to knock them all, but like I've had people like tell me, why does my 18-foot wide projection screen look different than their iPad or laptop? And it's like,
it's because you have
it's because it's an iPad, and I'm making your image 18 feet wide in a meeting room with lights and with all this stuff. The colors are a little different. Sorry that it's not quite what you thought it was going to be.
The pixels are a little off. You can't quite make it that big.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, some companies are like, their color integrity of their logo, whatever, that matters to them. But in a live environment, to me, it's like all water under the bridge. And like,
yeah, I'm sure they're passing out pamphlets or cards or something. It's like, take your color integrity to there. Like, this is projection.
Yeah,
stuff like that. But okay, so say the event's over, you're taking stuff down, wrapping stuff up, pulling all the tape off.
Yeah.
Okay, so
mixing live cam to PowerPoint.
I'm just here to get the job. I can't, like, so I'm not gonna ruin a dance floor with
I
this.
felt so passionate about the other thing, and now like it kind of helped me be better at the current job because the nerves were nothing. I remember like I used to like also operate lights, so I'd make like the lights go crazy when the DJ dropped something big. And so then in the corporate world, it's like way slower. And it was like I did a wedding where like all of a sudden the mother of the bride wanted the room to go from a certain color to pink when something happens. So there's like one lighting cue the whole night.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in the like music industry, you're doing lighting cues all night long to different songs and different
Well, we've talked about this before because like I'm so far removed from all this stuff. Is it everything still used? Like, is it DMX lighting? Is it still like those kind of
DMX is still driving stuff. There's very expensive, very large consoles that control all the lights, and a lot of it's maybe heading to the way of laptop controlling that stuff.
That's kind of what I figured, because like we had these huge DMX setups, and it's like, well, now there's laptops, so like, is that even relevant anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it kind of like, dude, is this not?
Oh, that died. This one's still going.
Oh, good. I saw the battery getting low on this thing. But...
that thing drains like crazy. I really need to plug that in when we do episodes.
Yeah.
But that one's still going.
Oh, good.
I'll mix it in. It'll be fine.
Yeah, no one will know. It is funny that we have some old cameras at work that they try to make me use, and I bought a Canon XA45, and I'm like, your whatever big honking camera that you think is pro grade gets its ass kicked by my $2,500 Amazon purchase. Like,
if you have $2,500, you could get basically the state-of-the-art thing. You can go just like a mirrorless Sony.
What you should do is sell your camera gear in a year and a half to someone starting up, and move on as rapidly as you can. If you do want to be in this industry, get ready for technology burn and get ready for abandoning your comfort equipment quickly.
Very quick.
In life, it's probably good for all people. Like, we all may have these dads or these family members that want to stick with their old phones, and in reality, like, you're doing yourself an injustice hanging on to these old things. Don't get me wrong, I love like certain things for certain.
No, I'm the same way. You're looking at like a 50-year-old mixer right behind you. But like, what you're saying is absolutely relevant. Like, when I got rid of my cell phone with buttons, I wasn't like, I'm gonna go to that one that's half touchscreen, half buttons. I was like, no, you gotta dive in full.
So I used to be all about the sliders.
Yeah, see that a lot of people did that. I was like, I can't do it. Yeah. If we're going touchscreen, I'm going full touchscreen. Yeah. I'm gonna hate it for a month, and then I'll be fine.
You did? I was a late. I was one of the last.
I saw a lot of people do that. That's why I didn't do it. But also, right before that, I got one of those big Sony DV cameras. It was irrelevant in like 4 months. Like we had moved on to like just SD cards. It was like, you bought a DV camera? This is ridiculous. And it was huge.
Yeah.
It was enormous.
Yeah.
Complete waste of time. Anyway, so let's wrap up the day. Do you have like a sleep routine or something you do like before you go to bed, or anything just to get you ready for the next day? Like, or you just
like, my life is such an absence of certain routines. It's like
you just grab a couple drinks and fall over? Because I'm not against that.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like the ship's coming in for a crash landing. Sometimes it's like, I have my days where I feel like I got to bed at a responsible hour and get up the next day, and
those might be old.
We'll go. I'm like, consider myself a bit of a battle tank. Like, I just don't give a fuck. Go hard in the paint. Hard in the paint is one of my favorite sayings. Like, I always think of like these basketball players underneath the rim, and they're just like battling with people, and
I was actually
going hard in the paint.
No, I was literally just looking into that a little bit, because I've heard that phrase my whole life, but I never really knew what it pertained to. And then I was watching that did you see that show on I think it was HBO or Showtime, the show about the Lakers in the late 70s, early 80s. It's a great show. I think it's called Winning Time. Remember the whole Jerry Buss thing?
What's his name? Playing Jerry Buss is great.
John C. Reilly. That way it's a fucking excellent show. But the hard in the paint thing, I never quite understood it. And I was like, I know it's basketball, and I know there's paint on the court, but it's like, is that it? Is that the whole?
I just use it for a motto to like inspire me in life. Like, you're gonna go hard in the paint, and like literally think about, just watch their athleticism and all that they do, and kind of know how you can translate that to our nerdier aspects of life. And like,
No, I love it.
I mean, there's a lot of people that do what I do in different cities and different countries and things like that. And I get so many positive reviews when they come and they're like, oh, wow, you were really good at your job. And I'm like, well, I try to be. I try to give a shit. And I mean, that's step one. Any job you do, give a shit and try to be really good at what you do.
That's why anyone that compliments me on my job, like, oh my God, this is great. I was like, no, I try.
Yeah.
That's all I say. I just like, I try.
Do you care? Like,
Yeah.
Job number one, do you care?
Yeah, I think that's the most important part, because a lot of people are doing jobs just because like I have to do this
Yeah,
job.
or you get jaded at the job that you do, and it takes it out on other people. I was telling you about how my dislike of meeting planners, because it's like, oh, a lot of times the meeting planner is like this intermediary between the people that do the work and the actual job that needs to be done, and they're just commenting on
Exactly.
like how I did my job, and it's like, you know what, do this, a few 100,000. I don't know. I don't know how many shows or events I've done, but like,
No, I've also painted a picture of how much I don't like those people that are just like, I'm just here to do a survey on your experience with it. It's like, nah, get out of here. But I made that rant on a different episode.
you can cut and paste this in wherever you see fit. But I'm like the director of a low budget movie a lot of the times, because it's like lights, video, camera, and roll.
Yeah, you get the whole shebang.
Conference is like, it's filming a low budget movie essentially, where I am the director of the movie, but it happens to be a very corporate-y sort of experience movie.
And it goes, and it disappears at the end. It's very zen.
Yeah.
It's like you're making that little garden, it disappears.
It is zen. It is zen.
Yeah, see?
Thanks for saying that.
So let's get into some of the fun stuff, and then we'll get out of here, because I know we got people waiting on us. And
Nice.
I mean, do we? Are they too drunk to even remember that we were there?
See.
Anyway, okay, so just speed round, quick questions. Just give me your first instinct. Don't think about it too hard. Okay, your ideal breakfast.
Ideal breakfast. Oh, man. So, bagel, cream cheese, chives, salmon, and that's a
There we go. There we go. What movie do you think you've seen the most?
Yeah. Oh, it's a good one. I mean, I think Star Wars probably, but Shawshank Redemption
first one?
I love. And then earlier in the episode, we talked about Dead Poet Society, which is a great one. All the Star Wars.
Yeah.
Anything Star Wars universe, I love.
All heavy hitters, and you gotta love Shawshank. Shawshank's one of those things. Like if you're I don't have cable anymore, but if I had it, it's one of those movies. It pops on. I don't care where it's at. I'm gonna
think of pure volume. Shawshank is up there, and it's just an inspiring movie to be.
It's just a fantastic film. Okay, any candy in the world. What do you have in?
I have such a sweet tooth that I love all sorts of things.
But it's like you're in a pinch. You gotta go. You can have anything you want, but you gotta get it. You gotta.
When I was a kid and trick or treating and showed up with the Reese's cups, those were like my favorite. I did enjoy Hershey almond bars back in the day, and I
like those. I like that they do the whole almond now.
Yeah,
those are great.
I also enjoyed some of the other answers in some of your other episodes.
Oh, I know. I have several versions of these. This is just the card that I pulled today. But yeah, I love making fun of people for bad answers. I forget who said hot tamales, but I was like, get the fuck out of here with hot tamales. Anyway.
Point before you get into that.
Sure.
Back in 5th grade, I used to sell now and laters to other classmates. I was a little now and later hustler.
Yeah, a little entrepreneur.
If you remember, they were these hard shoe things.
I lost a tooth to an now and later.
Yeah.
I was young. Boy, they pulled it right out. Pulled that tooth right out.
Yeah.
What kind of soap do you use?
See, this is a fun thing that I loved from right now. I'm a big on the bars of soap, right?
Okay.
I feel like the soap makers try to get us into these body washes, and they sell, and it really doesn't last near as long as old school bars of soap. And I try to be as environmentally conscious as I can. like eliminate my plastic usage and stuff like that. So bars of soap are good. We have a bunch of Irish Spring.
That's a go-to.
And Coast. My dad always used Coast when I was a kid.
Coast, yeah, I haven't even heard of Coast in a long time. They still sell that?
And they do. And I have some Dove Men Plus Care.
Oh yeah, I heard Dove's been kind of stepping it up.
Like so if you really think about it, if you want to be a responsible citizen, you should just do the bar of soap, not a body wash, which is a water plus a liquid that doesn't last near as long as a bar of soap. They try to keep themselves selling stuff by telling us that a body wash is better, when in reality, a good old bar of soap is a bar of soap, and it's being more environmentally responsible. And
that's a good PSA, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for that. You're welcome.
Take note.
I'm looking out for you young folks, not my old ass self. And
what's your biggest pet peeve? Just in general.
Oh God. Me monsters. I call them me monsters.
What is a me monster?
You never heard of me monsters?
No, what is that?
What? People that are all about themselves, like anything you say to them, they turn on themselves.
Oh yeah, those are awful
some
people.
Other good names for it.
I like that me monster though.
Yeah, I feel like I invented that, but also a lot of people else came up with it in the same sort of relevant time frame.
I hope it catches on. I like.
Oh, here's the thing that I saw, which is better.
Okay.
Main character syndrome. All right. That resonates with...
Oh, like the Truman Show thing, where it's just like you think your life is like, you're
but
the
people have main character syndrome, and it's like, oh, how am I involved in your life? And like, we've all been there, where like you'll say something that maybe you're not feeling so great, and then they'll just railroad you into their life, and not being the best conversationalist or whatever. And main character syndrome, or me monsterism, in my opinion, is like when...
I feel like that's a t-shirt at this point.
Yeah, like
although I feel like the me monsters would buy them themselves and wear them.
Like, yeah, they'll take it over. And
so let's not do that.
Anytime you've ever told something special to you about someone, they immediately bring it back on themselves. By the way, Brian Regan's one of my favorite comedians, and he has a great bit about similar like me monster stuff, and he was talking about the one person that has the trump card on all of that are the handful of NASA astronauts that have been on the surface of the moon. And then they'll be talking to this guy that says like, I was driving on the Autobahn in my Porsche and like going 120 miles an hour, and the NASA astronaut can be like, well, you're saying that, but it reminds me of the time that I was on the surface of the moon driving in my lunar rover. And me monsters are my biggest pet peeve.
Okay. No, I love that. That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Do you have a tipping custom?
Anyone that's ever worked in the service industry for any amount of time, I think we're automatically better tippers than...
Absolutely. That's why I asked the question. Because I get to weed out people that have been there.
That, and like, so if you're in a restaurant and you feel like you spent too much or something, probably not in the right restaurant, and don't go to a restaurant that you're worried about the prices of things. And
no,
do your homework. Go there.
Yeah, know your role.
Plan on 20%. If I have like a legit bad customer service experience, I'll maybe drop it down a little bit, but
Yeah, so I always say like you got to be a real dick. For me to drop. And even that, I'm still not gonna be that bad.
I mean, like honestly, I like to reward good behavior, so I do.
Oh yeah, if they're great, that's probably good.
Yeah, like and we have a great opportunity to be generous with each other in life versus not, and like
why not just take the advantage, because like that $20 tip might make someone's day.
When I was bartending for the first time, it was because the bartenders wanted to go see Christina Aguilera at another bar that was also owned by the same ownership, and I was like, well, if you let me bartend tonight, when I was VJing, then I want to bartend more, and you're gonna have to let me do that. And so, long story short, the bartenders from the neighborhood would come in and tip like gangbusters and money hot in their pocket. And I kind of saw that like, I can't do that, but that generosity was like, a thing. We, if we all spread it around, we've got plenty. But
yes, and we're all good at that point. Childhood celebrity crush.
Oh, dude, you had her in your bathroom, man. Christina Applegate.
I do, for the listeners, I do have a crazy 80s headshot. Not even a headshot. It's a full blown thing that you'd see at like a barber shop of like, check out this hair. But it's her. It's a great thing.
There's Samantha Fox.
Stereo.
Gibson.
Okay.
The girl from Full House. What was her name?
Which one?
There's a couple that were older and younger. I was kind of like right in that age bracket. Yeah. Let me see. These will probably mean nothing to some of these listeners right now, but they can Google it. And,
do some. Yeah, give yourself
your homework, boys or girls. And oh no, the best one though. Are you ready for this?
I am ready.
The Never-Ending Story, The Princess. Oh my God.
See, that's
the princess at the end of the Never-Ending Story in the Great Nothingness, and the princess that rebuilds, whatever. Yeah, the princess at the end of the Never-Ending Story. That was like, wow.
What's the hardest time you ever laughed?
Hardest time I ever laughed.
You don't have to think about it too hard. It's like, what's the first thing that pops in your head?
Hardest time I ever laughed. Shit. That's a tough question.
It is a tough one.
Do you have an answer while I'm thinking about mine?
No, I stole a lot of these.
You stole a lot of it? No,
I stole these from other podcasts, and I watch a lot of Dick Cavett.
How many years while I'm thinking about it? Dick Cavett. Wow.
No, I don't. I actually don't know. The hardest time I ever laughed, it's always something stupid.
Yeah.
It's always some like fart where it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Something like when I was 10. You know what I mean? That's when you get to that kind of heaving on the ground kind of thing.
So I went to, there's a couple. When I was a kid in church, we had communion, but not like your Catholic communion. It was like something of God church. I don't know if you're going to believe that or not, but anyway. So they would pass out these little plastic cups, and my big friend Joe had his communion cup in his hand. He's a big, tough guy. He was like our bodyguard, basically. And he cracked his communion cup, and the whole church heard it. And I couldn't help but laugh at the whole seriousness of the situation and then the communion cup cracking. And I laughed so hard, and my mom was so embarrassed, and I couldn't stop laughing. I don't know why that's the thing I chose.
No, see, that's why I asked the question, because it's always something like that. It's not like the greatest joke you ever heard. Yeah, it's not about it's that one inappropriate thing that you're like, oh my God, that
it was so inappropriate to laugh in that scenario, and like we got some grief from it later on. Another good one though, also church related, to do with spearfishing, and he like stabbed down at the fish, and the thing that he was using to stab broke, and he just dumped himself into the water. And
yeah, see, it's good. Stuff like that. And to give credit, because
I go for days on that question. Like,
that's what I mean. Like, it's once you get going on it, there's people that have nothing, and then there's people who are like, oh, wait a minute, I think bucket.
Viewers might want to hear something from you if Oh,
I'll get there eventually. But to give credit, that is from the Pete Holmes podcast. Pete Holmes, first one.
Love Pete.
Pete's the class.
Dude, he's good.
Okay, so what type of music do you like and why?
Yeah.
You can interpret that question however you want to interpret it.
As someone that, works in this sort of adjacent biz, I like lyrically challenging content. I like stuff that, my early love of poetry and things like that.
I like that.
I want songs that kind of grow on me, like where the more you listen to it, the more you kind of peel out from it. And then also I like stuff that just fucking rocks, and you can put on and it winds you up and it makes your day. Or sometimes I want to listen to something that is winding down my day, and music is such a anchor in my life. It's like my therapy. It's my, if
Well-
I had to pick a best, like, top 5 song, it's like Tangled Up in Blue by Bob Dylan. Always, if shit's going wrong in my life, I can listen to that and, like, just get back on track. Or, my therapy is music, and there's plenty of stuff out there to...
So,
Still rolling?
still rolling, cut in smoothly, and it'll all work out nice. So, because we left that question right there, and we didn't really get to go into your commute at all, what are you listening to, in general? Just give me a 2-3 song, two, 3 genres, 2-3 whatever. Just however you feel like you need to answer the question.
So there's this podcast called Take You Through Your Day, or Take Me Through Your Day.
I don't need a plug on my own
Kidding,
show.
just kidding. And so musically, I like Bright Eyes is one of my favorite performers. Connor Oberst is just, again, with the lyrically challenging stuff. Like some of those songs, Broken Bells has been cool lately.
I like them a lot. They have new stuff.
That's so like
Maybe I missed out on the new stuff.
I'm old school, so I still hang on to Pandora. And everyone's a little Spotify and whatever these days, but Pandora kind of like, for me, was like constantly suggesting new things that I was like, wow, how do you know this about me? And some people were afraid of that, but in reality, music comes down if you like Bright Eyes, you also like this.
You will find lots of new stuff that's in that wheelhouse.
And if you also are having good friends that maybe ask them what they're up to listening, if you're not a meme monster, you can like say, wait, you're going to see this artist, or you're like into this? Like I like Mark Rebele is fucking great.
Familiar with that one.
Get ready to be familiar with it.
I'm going to look into it now.
He's coming into things. What was so not so good on the recordings, but the live performance, Andy, oh man, I hope I don't leave it hanging. Andy Frasco.
Okay, another one I haven't heard of. You're
Live show.
line here.
Like, honestly, if you think about it, like, these people don't become who we know and love until people go out there and see them do their basic stuff in the garage, or like the next step up is like the little club and the little, yeah. So,
all right.
Plugs.
Yeah. Dig it. Okay, we're gonna go through these last
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't have to go through it quick. We're good. What's the best advice you ever got?
Oh, I saw this on your other episode, and so I had this teacher in 11th or 12th grade. His name was Mr. Psycho, spelled S-I-K-O, but literally a psycho.
That's actually crazy, because I had a teacher with that name as well. I didn't take his class, but he was in my high school. No, I went to the next one over.
Yeah. So he's like, if you're not happy with your circumstances, you have no one to blame but yourself. Like, don't expect anyone.
I have a feeling this is the same guy.
Yeah, potentially. He had a very attractive daughter, which is one of the reasons why I listened to him a little bit more than maybe I would have.
It's an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, like anyone can bullshit, but his daughter taught me he has a very him as an especially handsome fella.
That he definitely has a hot wife.
Yeah, and like literally, if you're not happy with your present circumstances, you're the only one to blame for that.
Yeah,
and like
that's very true, though. A lot of people don't recognize that. That's a real thing.
Yeah. I think there's a problem with some parenting right now where like there's helicopter parenting, as they call it. There's snowplow parenting, where they've moved every obstacle out of their kid's life, and then they get in the real world and they're facing obstacles.
I haven't heard of that, but that's a great term. I'm gonna use that from now on.
Helicopter parenting is when they just parachute into...
Well, I know that. I'm familiar with that one, but the snowplow, that's
third one, concierge parenting, where your parents have basically act like you're a concierge. And,
Oh, so they just kind of handle everything.
and then you get in the real world and you don't have that, and you're like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
why aren't these people?
Yeah, what's the matter with my life that I'm...
So if you're like new in a job market and you're just graduating college, and then you get in a job and you're feeling like, why aren't these things happening for me? Realize that like the people that you're interacting with aren't used to that being a thing. Like you're not the special daisy that you believe yourself to be.
Yeah, that's always...
Other people have their own interests, and
Okay, so if someone gave your 18-year-old self $1,000, what would they do with it?
what would I do with it? Yeah, 18 ought to have been sophomore at Penn State, broke as shit. So
here's $1,000. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a tough question. Like at the time, 18 years old, I mean, I remember, like I already mentioned, dealing with a lot of like way more well-to-do.
But that's what I mean. Because you got to get yourself in that 18-year-old headspace. Like you're dealing with ramen noodles and trying to perform well in college. What do you do with $1,000?
What I did do when I was at Penn State is there was this like stationery store, and it had this really cool looking journal that was like $30 or something, and I loved the look of this journal, and I was broke as shit, and I was really contemplating whether or not I should buy this leather bound journal for $30 or whatever it was at the time. And if I had $1,000, I would have made that decision way more easy.
You definitely got that journal.
But my ex did rip it up for stupid reasons. And, but yeah, it would have probably just gone to like normal stuff, like, making life easier.
Yeah, just having a nice little...
Not feeling like so much of a clinger on her. Like, I was really struggling at Penn State because my roommates came from like a lot more privilege than me, and like
yeah, that can be an issue.
It's like I used to be a big JD Salinger fan, and he would talk about having like better luggage than his roommates, and they all had better shit than me, and like
all right, so someone gave you $1,000 right now, what do you do?
Right now, I mean, $1,000 doesn't mean as much now as it did.
No, it really doesn't. But I mean, what do? You just throw it in the bank? You just
so timely question.
That's what I mean. Like this is as relevant as it can be.
Yeah. So I would maybe put it into some equipment, like gear that pays me back to.
Something. That's a very responsible answer.
I want to like if situationally I'm good right now where I don't have a lot of debt. I feel like there's good debt and bad debt. Household debt is not a bad debt to have, because if you look at the way that money is changing hands right now, your household interest rate is not a big deal compared to inflation and things maybe changing value. So enjoy that. Or your car interest rate, if you're smart and savvy enough to have a decent, let that be a thing that, you can deal with. Even your student debt, if you're listening to this and you have student debt, don't let it be something that really impacts the way that you live your life. Like, you'll pay it over time. Let it be a thing. Don't let it feel like some giant burden on yourself.
Just the general point is spend the money where you're going to get some money back.
Exactly, which is your college education, your car, your house. Like, yeah.
All right. Two questions, then we're done.
Yeah.
Then we're done. And we're getting out of here.
Hey,
all right.
Take your time.
Guilty pleasure.
Too many to name.
Just give me a go-to, like something you're just like, all right, fuck it. I'm into this, and I don't like people knowing I'm into it, but I'm into it. I listened
to a few of your podcasts, and this is the one that came up, and like,
I try to change them up. I try to keep them fresh.
Yeah.
I have several of these cards.
I mean, obviously, top of mind is hooking up with, I don't know. I don't know how much I want to go into detail on that, and like
just give me something that you say. You could say Rocky Road ice cream. You don't have to go too salacious.
hanging out with good people, drinking way too much, maybe some other things, getting involved in the mix of that. And like, in reality, you could beat yourself up about it in the morning, or you could be like, that was a goddamn good night that I had good talks with. And yeah.
Well, that actually is perfectly relevant because we are absolutely going to drink too much tonight, and it's going to be a great time. Yeah. And the last and final question, and then then we can move on. If you could do anything, what would you do?
Okay, so this is not going to be the last and final question because I wanted to go on my little rant.
Go on your rant. You're allowed to go on your rant.
About shoes in the other podcast.
That's where we're going. Shoes?
In the other podcast, you ask people about shoes. And
yes.
I fucking hate Crocs.
I also fucking hate Crocs. That's a hill I will die on as well.
Okay,
fuck Crocs.
So let me go on this little, if you take something that used to be awesome and there was like people that made the shoes nice, and then all of a sudden someone comes along and injection blow molds a shoe that people wear out and about. Like, if you've ever watched Idiocracy, all right.
Well, I was actually just listening to Mike Judge talk about that.
Really?
Because he was saying when they made Idiocracy, the Crocs hadn't blew up yet.
Yeah.
And one of his like production designers or something like came in and was like, "Oh, you do these? These are fucking stupid. Yeah. These are good." It's like, these are never gonna catch on.
Yeah.
And then they fucking did, and it's like, oh.
So in life, okay, this is important for your listeners.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes technology can be a race to the bottom, not a race to the top.
Yes.
And instead of shoes with like cool toes and like that last you a long time, like some, whatever. I like my Nikes. I like some New Balance stuff. I like some Adidas stuff, but they have to have like those real toes, not the meshed stuff.
Yeah.
Then a company comes along and says, let's just blow mold, like shoot a bunch of plastic shit into a thing. We can fire these out all day long. It doesn't take humans to do anything.
Cost pennies and they'll pay for...
But we're actually going to act like they're cool and charge more for them. And,
yeah, we'll get celebrities to wear them and make them seem cool.
Exceptions if you work in like a fish market or something.
See, okay, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Because I thought this until recently. This is literally like last week. And we are post-pandemic, folks. So this is like Crocs have been a thing for quite some time now. I was like, my foot is never going to crest the entrance of a Croc ever because it's so ugly. And I was at a DSW and I was like, man, I'm going to put it on. I gotta feel it. What? I gotta feel it.
You did?
It's got to be comfortable. There's the only way that people like these things is because they're comfortable.
Yeah.
I put my foot in.
Well,
I was like, this is trash. This is a piece of foam plastic trash. This does not feel good. This does not look good. I think
the start of it was like people that work in these jobs where their shoes get absolutely ruined quickly. If you're in something that involves a lot of blood or whatever, and you just hose those things down. Like nurses use them a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, nurses have those other things. They look like the little Dutch girl things. That whatever. I don't know what they're called.
Those also suck. But
whatever. They're easy to wipe it off or whatever. And if you're a chef or there's slip-on Vans. There's all kinds of things that you can just destroy. You're out, $40.
Yeah.
Whatever, but Crocs are so fucking ugly. But the second I put my foot in, I was like, "This isn't even comfortable."
Yeah,
it didn't even check a box.
I still haven't forgiven flip flops in my life because when I was a kid, I was always go, run everywhere, do everything, and then like if you ever tried to like run in flip flops, and then your toe gets caught or like the flip flop like flips on the ground and you screws you all up. So I am zero flip flop basically.
I am also zero flip flop. I have an aversion to feet. I don't like feet.
Yeah,
that's just a general thing. Okay. I mean, men's feet specifically, but I mean, women get a lot of funky feet on.
Do you know, as you continue to do this podcast, people get interested in you as the podcaster more.
Well, that's why I never tell anyone who I am.
You're probably gonna cut this shit out of the thing and like.
You never know.
Yeah, leave it in. It's good. They're kind of curious about you too.
So, okay, so you never answered the final question. If
I
you
know.
could-
I wanted to.
if you could do anything.
I wanted to put in my 2 cents about
No, I'm glad that
fucking
you
Crocs.
did.
So
I'm glad that you
whoever's
did
out there
because
listening,
I
whenever you're
like hearing
listening in
about
time, and I like it that you share my distaste for an
absolutely
injection blow molded shoe.
atrocious.
Like,
Atrocious.
there is certain things in life where they try to tell you that less is more, and I am always going to be on the side of more is more. And like, there's a race to the bottom in a lot of things.
Well, that being said, can we get into Toms for a second? You know, Toms, the shoes.
No, Tom.
Okay, so
Never owned any, but
me either. I think they're ugly as shit.
Yeah.
But it's like they're doing a thing, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't every shoe sponsor something, or
Well,
they give money to something, or
and
I don't particularly like it, but it's like it's not. I'm not averted. I'm not. I don't like hate looking at people wearing
Right.
them. Whereas I see Crocs, I'm like, ew.
yeah. So, and then Toms in general, there's a problem with like this sort of like white knight mentality of Toms where they're like give shoes to these communities in Africa.
Is that what it is? You buy a pair and you give a pair?
Something like that.
Something
except
like that?
except that those communities in Africa have shoe salesmen and stuff. So if you talk about just donating a bunch of stuff to this African culture that is actually used to being barefoot or used to having like a guy that they buy shoes from, that can be problematic. I'm not saying to not be generous in that regard, like,
Yeah, I mean, do
but
whatever you
you're
can.
also like need to be measured in it and understand that like you actually could be in our American ideal or whatever we're seeing. We see them over there and think something like otherness, and in reality, they've just chosen to not need that thing that we're the ones buying Crocs. They're not the ones dumb enough to buy Crocs. And
But I mean, that being said, though, like as much as it's like, okay, buy a pair of Toms and then give a pair of shoes to someone in a third world country, there is like, I don't know if you've ever been to one of the Goodwills that isn't set up like a Goodwill. It's set up in like troughs, and they like weight. You buy things by weight.
I live very close to
I see a lot of people that come in, like, well, I think certain countries, I can't be specific because I've never talked to any of them, but they literally they go there and they just buy all the shoes.
Yeah.
They buy all the shoes and they send them back to their home country, and that's it. And it's like, I kind of feel like that guy is probably doing a better job
Yeah.
than whatever Tom's is doing. I could be wrong.
Sure.
I don't know.
Again,
I've never looked into it.
we need to be conscientious about these things and like know what part is like a marketing scheme and know what part is like, and it begins with altruism, which is nice, but in reality, altruism, I mean, get me started on Goodwill, which the CEO makes like millions of dollars a year receiving free products, and like
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I think some of like one of your other interviewees mentioned the Salvation Army versus Goodwill, and
Yes,
like
there's things come up, but anyway, we're gonna get off on a tangent because like we could literally sit here and just drink all night and have this happen. So answer the last question. If you could do anything, what would you do?
Take a minute.
You say take your time with it. You can start at any age.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You don't have to start right now. You could be like, I want to be 18 and I want to be on this. I want to do this.
Yeah.
Just dream job. Dream job where if money didn't matter and your family was just taken care of, what you would like to wake up and do every day. That's what the dream job is.
Yeah.
And I've played for a while. You have to get in there and go to asphalt.
There you go.
That's all right. So
Still rolling?
Yes, yeah, we're rolling. We're rolling. So back to
I wanted to be a fighter pilot back in the day. I'm an Air Force brat a little bit, and
what, like a family thing?
yeah, both my dads were in the Air Force, and I was always like, I tried out for the Air Force Academy, which is an extraordinarily hard thing to do.
I can imagine.
I murdered it on the physical fitness side of things because I'm kind of like weirdly athletic and
Hard in the paint, I remember.
hard in the paint and special sort of like hybrid, you know, if anyone's listening that maybe is like athletic but also smart and like don't be apologetic about being an athlete and also educated. And
Yeah, there's no reason to be ashamed about being smart.
yeah, I love it. There's so much stuff right now. Like, be smart. Literally,
Yeah.
educate yourself. Just be smart. And you know, there's so many dumb things you can listen to, or you could choose things that edify yourself. And if I had to give any advice, like, just get smarter every single day. Learn things and learn how to do things. Learn how to fix your whatever. I like to also balance that with knowing when to pay someone to do something for you versus doing it yourself. Like, I could definitely change the oil in my vehicle, but I do like just paying a guy to do that.
That is a fine line to walk.
Right. And if you're a young man or woman listening to this, walk that fine line and be like, I could wash my car at home, but if I go to a place and give them $10 and like spray it down and make your car look nice and pretty, you know, it's worth the $10.
I would add on to that just a little bit, just because this is a personal thing for me, because I'm very much like that too.
Yeah.
I think that you should learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And do it.
And appreciate the people that do it.
Then make the decision if I want to pay someone to do it or not. Because like I can change my own oil,
Yeah.
but I know what that costs.
Yeah.
And I know what time it takes.
Yeah.
And I know what a coupon at Jiffy Lube is.
The other thing is that you get an extra set of eyes on your vehicle, something that, you know, matters to you, and you get them to be like, hey, you know, might want to be concerned about your...
Well, that's if you get a good mechanic.
Exactly.
Because if you go to a Jiffy Lube or a Firestone or something like that, they will try to fuck you. Hey, you know, you kind of need new tires right now. It's like, no, I don't. No, I don't.
On the
Fuck
subject, I can plug Venturella's in Swissvale, which is right on the bus line. So I used to go there, and if you want to find a good mechanic, find a guy with a real shitty car, all right? Because he just has given up caring about his own personal vehicle because he's constantly fixing other people's vehicles. So he has this Oldsmobile from back in the day.
Find someone with a giant engine bay.
It has a mixed-match door, but you put a different colored door on the thing, and he's just always like brass tacks with me, and he is right there in Swissvale, and I can drop my car off on certain days and get him to change my oil and change it, you know, certain, like, tune it up and whatever, and tell me about the vehicle from his expert point of view, and never overselling, never like bullshitting about.
I think the best takeaway is finding a mechanic you can trust.
Yeah,
That is worth so much money. It's not even a
some
joke.
people consider it better than your doctor and your
Yes.
lawyer and whatever. Finding a mechanic that doesn't bullshit about anything, and you know.
Because we've gone on a little bit of a tangent here, so I feel like this is going to be like a little bonus material because we've got into cars.
Yeah.
Did you see my old Subaru that's in the back there?
I saw the new one that we drove.
Well, no, yeah, you were in that
Yes.
one. I have an older one that I bought for my buddy. And me and him were going to wrench on it, and just like it was going to be our little project car.
Wrench on it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And I brought it up to my mechanic because it started to not, it wasn't idling correctly.
Yeah.
And my mechanic was like, oh, well, you probably need to just clean the throttle body.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, how much does that cost?
Yeah.
And his wife was like, you know, you can just like do it yourself, like look it up on YouTube and do it yourself. I was like, oh, okay.
I mean,
that's what a good mechanic is.
Yeah.
Because like, she could have been like, oh, just give us like $150 and we'll do it. But she was like, just go on YouTube and buy a couple of brushes and this little cleaner solution and knock it out. That's the sign of a good mechanic.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. They're so busy with other things that they'll try to get rid of the things that they don't want to deal with, and you can do yourself.
Absolutely.
And like YouTube University is a great thing, man. I've learned so many different things, and
It's one of the greatest things that's ever.
right. You have, for young folks, they have access to all the information at their fingertips if they just do the due diligence.
Yeah, just do a little research.
I really have problems with certain tech being value engineered to the extreme, where like I wanted to do a matchy from the washing machine that I came with the house to the dryer, and this old Kenmore dryer that was just plugging away, doing its best effort. I've got a Samsung to match my washing machine off of Facebook Marketplace, and I've had more problems with that thing than the 20-year-old dryer that was just doing its thing, because back then they didn't value engineer stuff. They just made a thing to work as long as it possibly could. And
It's funny that you say those things specifically, because that's the exact setup I have in my basement. I have a Kenmore washer.
What?
I have a Samsung dryer that I got for free and fixed, but it's still kind of wonky. Like it works, but it's like it's not great. But I still have my grandmother's dryer, so it's like if that fucks up, I'm just gonna swap out the old.
It doesn't fuck up because they made it right back then, and
because the old ones are great.
Yeah. And for young folks, some relief may be on the way, because Europe has legislated things faster than America has, where it's like right to repair stuff, and basically, some of this value engineering that I know engineers in general don't want to make a product that sucks and has a short lifespan. They want to make a badass product, but as money goes, they're like, yeah, let's make it last 5 years, and then they can be looking at our new latest greatest product.
That's both of the things that you just said are huge deals to me.
Yeah,
because like with like Apple products, because people are so emphatic about Apple products.
Yeah,
and they are good.
I am decidedly an anti-Apple.
I'm a very anti-Apple person. I will admit it's a superior product, but I do not.
I won't go.
Okay, all right. You don't have to agree with me with that, but I'm saying that I don't like the whole end-to-end control thing. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with any of the not being able to tinker with anything.
Right.
And I absolutely do not sign off on controlled obsolescence.
Yeah.
So you're just telling me I'm going to spend $1,200 on a phone.
Yeah.
And in 2 years, you're going to just decide I'm done?
Exactly.
I will not sign off on that.
Exactly.
And I'm not, it's because because I don't want to blow Samsung, because that's what I have. Yeah. But I just mean like,
Samsung too.
But I won't, I refuse to bow to Apple.
I am Samsung for several years now, although I do not like the fact that they got rid of the headphone jack on my phone.
I don't like that either.
Because a lot of people spent money on headphones that are like...
Yeah. But it's like, I have a friend that sends me something on, so it's like, I can't throw my studio headphones on to listen to that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And that's something that, people need to be aware of. Like, you'll hear these stories about Steve Jobs and Wozniak and all their garage tinkering and how they used to do that. One of my favorite things that I ever did was build my own computer and learn and figure out what the RAM is and what this is. And then Apple went ahead and removed that from a whole generation of people.
Yeah, they just took it away.
Basically, if you want to know what you're doing, build your own custom PC. And obviously Windows is kind of the dominating thing.
Windows is dominant, but Linux is very good.
Yeah, and know that Windows is just the delivery system. It's not
the thing that you're actually going on the computer.
If I could represent a company right now, ASUS is really doing great things in my mind.
That's my laptop right there.
Really? I got an ASUS myself, and great minds think alike. And
I thought it was pronounced Asus, but also I don't know how to pronounce my own sneakers, so I'm not very good at these.
I do shows with 1,000 people watching it, and I would never want to do it with an Apple product. I would want to do it with an ASUS product, and they're just gonna blow shit out of the water. Another plug, Linus Tech Tips has been my guy for many years about things, And all the time he's building these ridiculous computers, he's putting like an Asus motherboard into the thing and like all the Asus monitor, and it's like, you know, that shit matters. And
yeah, these components make a difference.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that like some of these can hang. Like there's a reason that Roland's still around. There's a reason that these companies that do what they do are great.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was a big Korg fan for a while. I don't think they're doing a lot these days, but like a lot of my stuff is Korg.
Yeah. Nice. I used to
Alesis is another one that like all of my old amps were Alesis, and they never failed me. I went through some Newmark stuff, and I'd be in front of a giant crowd, and it would just fail. It would just overheat and fail.
Really?
It's like, what are you going to do in a situation where you have hundreds or thousands of people, and you're out.
Totally.
You're just busted.
Totally.
You're done. It's fucking terrible.
Yeah, if anyone is interested in the nitty gritty of how I do a show, I use a Roland video mixer, B1 HD. I have a few different Roland products that I use.
Well, give it all up, because we're already at the point where this is bonus material.
Yeah,
This is
and
not a
so
regular episode.
then there's this thing called a decimator, which is fucking cool. It basically translates HDMI cables, which are awful, very poorly done. So I literally, when I'm doing the show, I use the shortest HDMI cable possible.
Yeah.
And I turn it into to SDI really quickly with a decimator.
I really want to emphasize how important that is. Like, you want a short HDMI if you have to deal with HDMI, because it's too finicky no matter what you do. There's no way to do it.
Yeah.
There's no way to do it that's going to fix it.
And sometimes I run cabling in a situation where there's people walking over it and whatever, and just good old SDI. It's a BNC connection, which stands for British Naval Connector. Mm-hmm. It's been around forever.
It's classic. They built it during, I'm sure, a war at some point.
Translating data in a way that people can step on, fuck with, whatever happens to the ship, or it's data traveling over a cable. And, you know, it's fun when these companies like Monster or whatever try to like tout their things. In reality, with digital stuff, it's just ones and zeros traveling. Like, if it travels well, it doesn't, or it doesn't.
I've dealt with Monster quite a bit, and I've had relatively pretty good experiences with it. But like, sometimes they get, I mean, I don't know, too long. I don't know the substance of why it's faulty, but yeah, Monster cable was a big part.
Well, HDMI, the way they build it, I'm gonna use it.
No, we're done here.